Hey there. Have you ever gotten really angry or felt totally disappointed and just wondered, why? Why does it feel so intense? So often, we treat these big emotions like they're some kind of personal flaw. But what if they're not flaws at all? What if they're actually ancient, incredibly sophisticated programs that our brains are just hardwired to run? Well, today, we're going to decode the brain's hardware and the cultural software that really dictate how you feel.
You know the feeling, right? We've all been there. Someone cuts you off in traffic, a project you poured your heart into doesn't quite work out, and suddenly it feels like the entire world is caving in. So why? Why does a seemingly small thing sometimes feel so completely, utterly crushing? Well, the answer is hidden deep inside our brain's wiring.
When you boil it all down, the difference between these two is surprisingly simple. Anger is your brain basically screaming, "Hey, they violated the rules." It's all about pointing the finger outwards, at someone or something else. But disappointment, that's a lot more personal. That's your brain saying, "Welp, reality just violated my hopes." It forces you to look inward and recalibrate what you expect from the world.
Now, the key thing to get here is that these feelings aren't just random glitches in the system. No way. They are a highly evolved emotional correction system. You can think of them as ancient programs built for survival thousands and thousands of years ago that are now trying to run on the hardware of our very modern brains. And this is really the heart of it. Anger and disappointment, they aren't moral failures. They are adaptive neurobiological tools. Seriously, they were sculpted over millions of years of evolution to help us navigate a really complex social world. And just understanding them as programs instead of as personal flaws is the very first step to getting a handle on them.
So what were these programs actually designed to do? Well, from an evolutionary point of view, anger is basically a social bargaining tool. It's this loud, unmistakable signal that an injustice has happened, and it prepares you to fight to restore fairness. Disappointment, on the other hand, is much quieter. It's a recalibration signal. It's your brain telling you, okay, that strategy did not work. Time to update the plan and, maybe conserve some energy.
Okay, so we know anger is a tool for action, but how does the brain actually build that feeling? How does it go from 0 to 60? Let's get under the hood and dive into the raw neuroscience behind this incredibly powerful emotion.
Think of it like a biological emergency response system. First, the amygdala, which is like your brain's smoke detector, senses a threat. Instantly, it signals the hypothalamus, the body's command center, to sound the alarms. Your heart starts pumping, blood pressure goes up, then the PAG gets you ready for action, fight or flight. And then finally, your prefrontal cortex, the rational CEO of your brain, jumps in and says, whoa, hold on a second, let's think this through. Is this really a good idea?
And fueling this whole fire is this potent chemical cocktail. It's like the brain's recipe for action. You get a dash of low serotonin to make you more impulsive, a big shot of dopamine for the motivation to act, a jolt of noradrenaline to put you on high alert, and a sprinkle of testosterone to dial up the dominance. It is a powerful, powerful formula designed to make you move.
Okay, now let's flip to the other side of the emotional coin. What's happening in your brain when you feel that gut punch of disappointment? We're shifting from the science of action to the neuroscience of recalibration.
So when reality doesn't live up to what you hoped for, the ventral striatum, that's your brain's reward center, sees its dopamine supply just plummet. And that is the feeling of being let down. Your insula, that's the part that registers that physical gut punch sensation. Meanwhile, your ventromedial prefrontal cortex is already busy rewriting your internal map of the world. And if the subgenual ACC gets stuck in a loop, well, that's when disappointment can spiral into that obsessive, endless thinking.
This all comes down to one really cool core concept: prediction error. Your brain is, at its core, a prediction machine. It's constantly guessing what's going to happen next. And a prediction error is just the brain's internal alarm bell that rings whenever reality doesn't match the prediction. It's the neurological basis for surprise. It's the brain screaming, "Hold on, that's not what I expected at all."
And this is where it all clicks into place. Both of these huge emotions are just different flavors of prediction error. See, anger is a social prediction error. Your brain is saying, you broke the social contract. Your behavior didn't match my prediction of what is fair. Disappointment, then, is an outcome prediction error. It's the brain saying, the world didn't deliver the result I was predicting. It's two different problems, sure, but they're both running on the very same core operating system.
So, we've established we all have this universal brain hardware. But it runs on software. And that software can be completely different depending on where in the world you grew up. So now, let's look at how culture literally writes the code for our emotional responses.
I mean, just look at this comparison. It shows you just how powerful that cultural software really is. In a lot of individualistic Western cultures, openly expressing your anger can be seen as a good thing. Like you're asserting your rights, you're reinforcing justice. But in many collectivist cultures, like in Eastern and Indian societies, where social harmony is the absolute top value, open anger is often suppressed because it's seen as a threat to the cohesion of the entire group.
Let's take a closer look at the Indian context, just to see how deep this can go. The concept of Dharma, or one's moral duty, can frame anger not as this righteous act, but as a personal failure of self-control. Strict social hierarchies mean showing anger toward an elder is just not done. And disappointment can be felt as a loss of izzat, or collective family honor, not just a personal letdown. The culture's rules are written directly into the very language of emotion.
So we've got this biological hardware and this cultural software. Does that mean we're just stuck, that we're doomed to react this way forever? Absolutely not. And this is the most empowering part of this whole story. We can actually learn to rewrite our own emotional responses. We can take control of the program.
And taking control is so critical, because when these programs just run wild, unchecked, they come with some serious health costs. We know that chronic anger is linked to a higher risk for heart disease. We know that chronic disappointment is a direct pathway to depression. And all this constant emotional stress, it literally wears down your prefrontal cortex, the very part of your brain you need to regulate these feelings in the first place.
But here's the really hopeful part. Our brains are not fixed. They are plastic, which just means they can change. This quote right here really captures the key takeaway. The strategies that we consciously practice can physically reshape the biological circuits inside our brains. Think about that. Your thoughts can actually change your biology.
So what are these tools? Well, first there's cognitive reappraisal, which is basically just changing the story you tell yourself about what's happening. Instead of, this is a total disaster, you could try, this is a challenge and I can learn from it. Then there's mindfulness, the simple practice of just observing your emotions without judging them so they don't end up controlling you. Seeking social support is also huge. Sharing the burden really does lighten the load. And what's cool is that these modern techniques align perfectly with ancient concepts like samyama, or self-restraint, which shows that we humans have been working on this stuff for centuries.
So here's the bottom line. Your emotions are not you. They are programs, written by evolution and then edited by culture. But you're the programmer. You have access to the code. So the only question left is, what will you choose to write next?